11 years working the southern Appalachian corridor out of Asheville, and I know when something shifts in the mountains. Not the seasonal changes, those follow patterns I've tracked through every October since I started with fish and wildlife. This was different. Wrong in a way that made me check the same trail cameras twice, then drive back out to check them again. The feeling started in late October, driving the Forest Service roads up towards the Shut-In Ridge Trail. I'd catch myself slowing down without reason, rolling the window down to listen, nothing specific, just the absence of what should be there. I've walked every mile of the 40-mile stretch between Looking Glass Rock and Black Balsam Knob, cataloged the deer patterns, tracked the black bear movements, documented coyote territories and fox dens. When you know a place that well, changes register before you can name them. The trail cameras gave me proof. I pulled the memory cards from 6 units along the Shut-In Ridge on a Thursday morning. Routine data collection. I drove back to the office expecting the usual footage. Deer moving through at dawn and dusk, maybe a bear working the berry patches, coyotes cutting between territories. Instead, I got something I'd never seen in 11 years of field work. Starting October 23rd, every camera showed the same thing. Night after night, animals gathering at the same coordinates, not just gathering arranged, deer standing perfectly still next to black bears, coyotes positioned alongside foxes, red squirrels motionless on fallen logs, while raccoons sat 3 feet away, all of them facing the same direction, all of them looking towards Black Balsam Knob. Nothing moved, nothing hunted, nothing ran. I watched 4 hours of footage, frame by frame. A 6-point buck standing shoulder to shoulder with a female black bear, both staring into the darkness beyond the camera's infrared range, neither acknowledging the other's presence, just watching, waiting. The footage ran from midnight to dawn. When daylight came, they dispersed normally. By the next night, they'd return to the exact same positions. I burned copies onto 3 discs and drove them straight to Kelsey's office. Kelsey Hampton has managed the Pisgah district longer than I've worked for Fish and Wildlife. She knows these mountains the way I know animal behavior, completely, instinctively, with the kind of authority that comes from decades of daily observation. When something's wrong in her forest, she feels it before the reports cross her desk. I found her reviewing incident files when I knocked on her doorframe. "Got you something you need to see," I said. She looked up from a stack of manila folders, reading glasses perched on her nose. "Trail cameras?" "Yeah, but not what you'd expect." I slid the first disc across her desk. She inserted it into her computer without comment, adjusted her glasses, and leaned back in her chair. The footage played. Deers, bears, coyotes, foxes, all arranged like they were posing for a group photograph, all facing the same direction. Kelsey watched without speaking. 4 minutes of animals standing motionless in the infrared glow. When it ended, she clicked replay and watched it again. Same behavior every night, 6 nights running, different animals, same positions. She ejected the disc and set it aside. Then she opened the bottom drawer of her desk and pulled out a thick folder marked with red tape. 3 hunters, she said, opening the folder. Missing since September. All solo trips. All within the same drainage basin above the Davidson River. She spread 3 incident reports across her desk. Missing person cases, search and rescue operations, each file stamped with the sheriff's department seal. Harold Jessup, age 47, last seen September 15th. Truck found at the Bent Creek trailhead, gear missing. She tapped the first report. Marcus Lee, 31, September 28th. Vehicle located at the Pink Beds Overlook, tent and backpack gone. Second report, David Kowalski, 53, October 8th, truck at the FS 471 gate. No equipment recovered. I studied the incident locations on her wall map, 3 different access points all feeding into the same watershed. Search teams found nothing, 72 hours each case, dogs, helicopters, ground crews. Not a boot print, not a piece of gear, not a scent trail. Kelsey closed the folder. Sheriff's Department classified them as missing persons, suspected voluntary departure. 3 experienced hunters just walked away from their trucks and disappeared? That's the official conclusion. She pulled a single sheet from the back of the folder. Handwritten notes, not part of the formal reports. There's something else, something I kept out of the sheriff's files. She handed me the paper. All 3 men made their last cell phone contact with the same tower. Fire Road terminus near the FS 816 gate. I checked the coordinates against my mental map. 2 miles below Black Balsam Knob. Same direction the animals were watching. When? Different times. Jessup called his wife at 11:47 p.m. Lee sent a text at 1:33 a.m. Kowalski left a voicemail for his brother at 12:56 a.m. She took the paper back. All between midnight and dawn. All from the same location. Same time frame as the animal gatherings. Same area. You think they saw something? Kelsey stood and walked to her window. View of the mountains. Clear October sky. Trees showing the last of their color change. I think something's happening up there that doesn't fit in an incident report. I took the fire road up at 7:30 the next morning. Same route I'd driven 100 times before, but this time before I even killed the engine, I knew something was wrong. Dead wrong. I sat there for a full minute with my hands on the wheel, listening to nothing. No birdsong, no wind through the branches, no rustling in the underbrush. The whole forest stood like it was holding its breath. I stepped out and shut the truck door. The sound echoed too long in the stillness. The trees weren't moving, not a single leaf, not a branch tip. I'd worked these mountains for 11 years and never seen anything like it. Even on the calmest days, there's always some air movement, always something shifting. This was different and unnatural. I pulled out my breath in the cold air and watched the white vapor drift. It should have dissipated straight up or maybe drifted southwest with the prevailing wind. Instead, it moved northeast, toward Black Balsam Knob. Every breath I took did the same thing. The fog rolled away from me in a slow, deliberate line, like something up there was pulling the air inward. I checked my compass. The needle pointed true north, but my vapor kept drifting 15 degrees east of that, against a wind I couldn't feel. That's when I started looking for sign. I found the pack 40 yards off the trail, tucked behind a cluster of mountain laurel. A green osprey day pack, the kind serious hikers use. No tears, no animal damage, just sitting there like someone had set it down to rest. The pack was too cold to touch, but dry. I opened the main compartment and found everything still organized. Energy bars in their wrapper. A water bottle that felt ice cold when I picked it up. Spare batteries in a sealed plastic bag. A folded map of the area. At the bottom, wrapped in a microfiber cloth, I found a Garmin GPS unit. The display was dark. Dead battery. I had spare AA's in my vest. I swapped them in and pressed the power button. The screen flickered, ran through its startup sequence, and settled on the main display. The device showed one saved waypoint, the last recorded position. I stared at the coordinates for 30 seconds before they registered. Then I checked them again. The latitude and longitude put the location directly beneath where I was standing, but the elevation reading showed negative 847 feet, half a mile underground. I pulled out my phone and called Kelsey. It's Terry. I found something up here. You need to see this. What kind of something? The kind that doesn't make sense. Can you get up to the fire road below Black Balsam? How fast do you need me? Fast. She arrived 53 minutes later with a passenger. An older man in wire-rimmed glasses and canvas-field pants climbed out of the passenger seat while Kelsey parked behind my truck. Terry, this is Elijah Jacobs, retired geology professor from Western Carolina. He knows these formations better than anyone. Elijah walked over and shook my hand. His grip was firm despite his age, maybe 70, but steady on his feet. Kelsey says he found something unusual. I handed him the GPS unit. He looked at the coordinates, then at the elevation reading. His expression didn't change, but he went very still. Where exactly did you find this? I led them to the pack. Elijah knelt beside it and examined the contents without touching anything. Then he stood up and looked up towards the ridge. "This coordinate corresponds to a cave system we surveyed in 1987, he said. "The university mapped about 2 miles of passages before we had an incident." "What kind of incident?" Kelsey asked. "We lost 2 graduate students. They were doing a deep survey run, following a passage that dropped below the water table. Their safety line snapped. We never recovered the bodies." Elijah adjusted his glasses and looked back at the GPS display. "After that, we sealed every known entrance and removed the system from all public geological maps. Officially, those caves don't exist." The 3 of us stood there in an unnatural quiet. No wind, no bird calls, nothing moving in the trees around us. "But someone's been down there," I said. Elijah nodded. "Recently, by the looks of this equipment." I understood then what had happened to Jessup and Lee and Kowalski. They hadn't just disappeared into the mountains. They'd gone somewhere that was supposed to be impossible to reach. Somewhere that didn't appear on any map, in any database, in any official record. They'd found a place that officially didn't exist. The collapsed section wasn't hard to find once we started looking properly. 20 yards west of where I'd found the pack, a section of hillside had given way recently. Fresh earth scattered down the slope, root systems still pale where they'd snapped. The exposed limestone face showed clean breaks, not the weathered gray you'd expect from old rockfall. "This happened maybe 3 weeks back," Kelsey said, crouching near the debris field. I studied the opening. Dark mouth about 4 feet high, maybe 3 wide. Natural limestone formation, but something felt wrong about the shape. Too regular around the edges. Elijah moved past both of us and dropped to his knees at the entrance. His hands hovered over the stone without touching, reading the rock like I'd read tracks. "These scoring marks," he said. "You're seeing them as damage from the collapse." I looked again. Deep gouges ran across the limestone face in parallel lines, each about 2 inches apart. "Rock shifted when it fell." "No." Elijah's voice stayed level, but his shoulders went tight. "These run from inside to outside. Something forced its way out of this cave recently." The marks made sense once he said it. Clawing motion, outward pressure, whatever made this had been trapped and broke free. "We're going in," I said. Kelsey checked her radio. 2 bars, weak signal. "Stay together. We document everything, then we leave." I clicked on my headlamp and squeezed through first. The limestone passage angled down immediately. Smooth walls worn by water flow over centuries. My boots found solid purchase on the stone floor. Behind me, Elijah's breathing stayed steady despite his age. Kelsey's light swept the walls in systematic arcs. 50 feet in, the passage opened up. The chamber stretched beyond my light beam, cathedral-sized. The stench hit immediately. Iron, sharp and metallic, like old blood. Underneath that, something else. Sweet but wrong, like fruit left too long in summer heat. My mind tried to catalog the smell, and I couldn't. "Holy shit," Kelsey whispered behind me. The walls weren't limestone anymore. Thick, amber, resin-coated everything. Floor to ceiling, translucent and slightly luminous in our headlamps. The surface looked organic, like tree sap, but wrong. Too thick and too uniform. And there were shapes inside it. Regular intervals along the chamber walls, upright figures, arms at their sides, standing like soldiers at attention. The resin had flowed around them, preserving every detail. I understood what I was seeing in pieces. A shoulder here, the curve of a spine there. Then a face became clear through the amber coating. Human faces, all of them. "They're people," I said. My voice echoed strangely in this chamber. 11 of them that I could count before I stopped looking. Men mostly, though 2 looked smaller, younger. The resin had caught them standing upright, arms loose at their side like they just walked into position. Their faces showed through the amber, clear enough to see features, expressions, no fear, no pain, just blank, empty stares like they'd been sleepwalking. There, Kelsey pointed left. Orange fabric. 3 figures clustered together near the chamber's far wall. Blaze orange hunting vests, still visible beneath the coating. Jessup, Lee, and Kowalski had to be. But they weren't just preserved. I watched Jessup's chest for 30 seconds before I trusted what I was seeing. A slow rise and fall, barely visible through the resin. Then Lee's. Then Kowalski's. They're breathing, I said. Elijah stepped up beside me. Impossible. I moved closer to the nearest figure, young man, maybe 25, t-shirt and jeans, work boots. The resin surface felt warm under my palm when I pressed against it. Warmer than the cave air, warmer than living skin. Beneath my hand, a vibration ran through the amber coating. Low frequency, steady rhythm, like a heartbeat, but deeper, slower. The same pulse I'd been feeling in the mountains for weeks without recognizing it. The vibration that had been drawing every animal in the forest to this ridge at midnight. The moment I lifted my hand away, something changed. A pressure I hadn't noticed suddenly lifted from my shoulders. An urge to stand perfectly still, to not move, to wait for instructions I couldn't hear. The urge vanished completely when I broke contact with the resin. We need to leave, I said. Now. I stepped backward towards the entrance, keeping my headlamp beam on the preserved figures until the passage narrowed. Elijah moved behind me, his breathing shallow and quick. Kelsey barred up the rear, her radio already in her hand. The limestone passage felt longer going out. My shoulders brushed the walls twice where they hadn't touched before. When we reached the collapsed entrance, daylight hit my face like cold water. Kelsey was already dialing before we cleared the opening. This is District Manager Hampton, Pisgah National Forest. I need to speak with someone in Federal Emergency Services immediately. She walked 20 yards from the cave entrance while talking, her voice carrying that flat authority she used for serious incidents. I heard fragments, multiple individuals, preservation medium, hazmat protocols. Elijah sat on a fallen log, pulling his cap and running his hands through white hair. How long were we down there? He asked. I checked my watch. 47 minutes since we entered. It felt like hours. Long enough, I said. Kelsey finished her call and rejoined us. CDC team from Atlanta will be here tomorrow morning with extraction equipment. We are to secure the area and keep everyone away from the entrance. I spent the rest of that day setting up a perimeter with yellow tape and calling in additional officers to maintain watch rotations. The silence in the mountains continued. No wind, no birds, no movement in the trees, like the forest was holding its breath. The hazmat team arrived at 7:30 Friday morning in 3 white vans loaded with chemical tanks and extraction pumps. The team leader, a woman named Dr. Maisie, examined the entrance for 30 minutes before suiting up. She explained their process while technicians assembled equipment. They would floor the chamber with glycol-based solvent designed to dissolve organic polymers without harming human tissue. It took 14 hours. I watched from the perimeter as they ran hoses into the cave and pumped in 300 gallons of solvent. The amber resin liquefied and drained through portable suction units. By 9 p.m., they brought out the first person. Harold Jessup walked under his own power, blinking in the floodlights like someone stepping outside after a long nap. He asked what day it was. When they told him November 1st, he shook his head. "That's impossible," he said. "I set up camp yesterday evening." Marcus Lee and David Kowalski said the same thing. All 3 hunters insisted they had been underground for less than 6 hours. Lee kept checking his watch and asking about his truck. Kowalski wanted to know if someone had moved his gear. The other 8 people came out in similar states of confusion. Some spoke languages I didn't recognize. One woman wore clothing that looked handmade, like something from 50 years ago. An elderly man asked for directions to a town that hadn't existed since the 1920s. None of them remembered the preservation chamber. When Dr. Maisie asked about the amber coating, They looked at her like she was speaking a foreign language. The CDC team sealed the cave entrance Monday morning with concrete poured from a mixing truck they drove up the fire road. They filled the passage to the ceiling and set reinforced mesh barriers 10 feet deep. Dr. Maisie told Kelsey the concrete would cure harder than the surrounding limestone. I wrote my incident report that afternoon, sitting at my desk with a cup of coffee that went cold while I typed. I used every technical term I knew: preservation medium, structural integrity, atmospheric anomalies. I documented GPS coordinates, temperature readings, chamber dimensions. I recorded exact times and equipment serial numbers. But there were gaps I couldn't fill. No terminology exists for the way that resin felt warm under my palm. No classification system covers the vibration that made me want to stand motionless and wait. No incident code addresses animals gathering at midnight to face a mountain. I filed the report with 8 blank spaces where explanation should have been. Kelsey read it twice, then signed it and locked it in her desk. Tuesday morning, I checked my trail cameras. The footage showed ordinary forest activity: deer browsing, squirrels collecting acorns, a black bear marking territory on a poplar trunk. No midnight gatherings. No animals facing toward Black Balsam Knob. The silence in the mountains had ended. Wind moved through the trees again. Birds called from the canopy. The forest returned to its normal rhythms, like nothing had happened. I requested a transfer that Monday morning. Kelsey denied it in the same afternoon. "We need experienced officers who understand the terrain," she said. "Especially ones who know how to write reports that say exactly what happened and nothing more." So I remained at the Asheville field office, driving the same Forest Service roads, checking the same camera locations. I carry my report in the truck's glove compartment. 8 pages of technical documentation with 8 blank spaces that will never be filled. Every morning, I drive past the concrete barrier that seals the entrance to something that officially never existed, carrying the weight of what I documented and everything I failed to say.